Everyday here with the tank guide for the hard mode Coratanni fight in the Ravagers operation. This fight is pretty straightforward as a tank, but it's very difficult for DPS and healers, and there's a high DPS requirement. So the biggest thing you can do to help your group out here, once you understand your role, is to understand the other roles so you can help call out mechanics that the other roles have to deal with. To begin with, I'll go over the mechanics for each of the phases, and during each phase I'll also cover tips or tricks specific to different tank classes that you can do to help minimize the amount of damage you're taking or maximize your output. We use a strategy where you push Coratanni till she goes to the next room, and then push Pearl the entire way. So the tank on Coratanni right now is just standing next to the boss, pointing the cleave away from the group, and calling out people that ricochet shots going on. It's a very simplistic job. You just have to basically stand so no one gets cleaved, and watch the target of the boss. The difficult thing is timing your defensive cooldowns for points where the healers are going to be particularly pressured. So you notice we're cleansing fire basically as quickly as we can. If you look at the operations frame compared to when the fire debuff goes out and when it disappears. This is just to minimize the amount of damage going out and really help the healers out. But the healers aren't cleansing their fire debuffs. That's because the stun that goes on you when you cleanse your debuff is very long in hard mode, and the healers have found that when they both cleanse theirs, people end up dying just due to damage from the bosses. So we've chosen to have one or both of them not cleanse every fire, depending on how the health of the group looks. So what you can do as the tank on Coratanni especially, is to time your defensive cooldowns for after fire goes out. Not for you, because your health will still be pretty good, because you're cleansing your fire very quickly, but mostly just to help healers out and let them top up other people and keep themselves topped up. So the tank on Coratanni is just calling out mechanics and standing in place. The biggest issue with tanking Coratanni is the threat mechanics due to the ricochet shot. When you taunt during ricochet shot, your taunt actually sets you above the threat of the person ricochet shot is being targeted on, not the person with the highest global threat on Coratanni. So it's important to time your taunt so Coratanni is attacking you or the person actually highest on threat. If you mistime a taunt and do it during ricochet shot, it's possible that you can lose a lot of the threat you built up and then end up having threat issues much later in the fight than you should. The other issue you'll have is if you taunt immediately before ricochet shot, the ricochet shot will go on you even if you already have the debuff. This is just a one shot, leads to an auto wipe. Unless you happen to be an assassin and you can stealth out during the ricochet shot cast, and then it will reset to someone else. So the safe point to taunt Coratanni is after ricochet shot, once she's changed targets, hopefully to you, but you or the DPS with highest threat. So at this point we've pushed Coratanni and both tanks are on Pearl. The mechanics on Pearl don't change before and after Coratanni goes away. He will go on a random flying around attacking people spree. We call it walkabout, where he is untauntable, and you can call out as the tank on Pearl when this is going to happen when you see your taunt go gray. So if he can't physically be single target taunted, that means he's about to start walking around and attacking people, and the tank on Pearl should be calling this out just to let healers know. You notice he also does a knockback when he's attacking people in this phase. So in the first phase, when Coratanni's still up, this knockback can put you into yellow or blue circles. So it's important to watch your positioning, or if you happen to be a power tech, when you know that this walkabout is coming up, you can pop hydraulics and avoid that knockback entirely. The biggest thing is after the walkabout, he may be slow to return to you. So it's important to have a taunt, or ideally both taunts up, to make sure the boss comes back to you as quickly as possible. You see this peck attack here that just went on every day at PT. It does a lot of damage, especially at this point when Pearl's enraged due to Coratanni being pushed. So if that happens to go on a DPS, it makes it very difficult for the healers to keep up. As a tank in this phase, you should be saving any raid buffs you have, like the shield from the Power Tech's AoE taunt or the Juggernaut's AoE taunt, or your phase walk as an assassin, and using it or making sure that the healers have the phase walk buff while people are getting pecked. So at this point, Coratanni and Pearl have both been pushed, and we're transitioning into the second room. Rugar is pretty similar to the way he is in story mode. He does a backstab. You just can't turn your back to him. He drops mines on top of the person holding aggro on him. And his sort of most punishing attack is the hostage situation. This is where he jumps to someone and every hit on him reflects about 5,000 to 6,000 damage to the person attacking him, or the person he's taking hostage. So we've chosen to tank Rugar against these consoles in the middle of the room. We found that the jet charge he does when you walk too far away from him does more damage than the landmines. And moving out of landmines without getting jet charged is very difficult. So we've chosen to put her back to the wall and just eat landmine damage. In doing so, we avoid taking jet charges altogether, and it decreased the amount of damage going out during this phase. It has the added benefit of meaning you don't have circles all over the room, which makes it just a very much cleaner phase. So Rugar is putting a stacking corrosive dart debuff on the tanks. We've chosen to swap at 2 stacks. If you happen to get called while you have 2 stacks of this debuff on you, it does a lot of damage. And we choose to use defensive debuffs, we choose to use defensive buffs for as many of these 2-stack corrosive darts as we can. So you'll notice that both tanks tend to pop their buffs about halfway through the first stack they have. This means they're up for the end of the first stack, and most of the time they're taking 2-stack damage. Occasionally during the fight, Rugar will do a knockback. The positioning against the wall here is important due to the knockback. If you happen to be angled against the wall and he knocks back, you may get launched away from your healers, and this is a really good time for you to die. If he has to jump to you and you're moving, he'll also backstab you just because the latency with catching up where your positioning is and where the boss is. So not moving is just the easiest way to avoid that. As a power tech, it's not particularly important, but as the other 2 tank classes, it's important when you're swapping in this phase between tanks that you use your AoE taunt to taunt off the other tank. And this is because occasionally Rugar will randomly jump to a member of the raid. He does his jet charge attack here, which does a lot of damage to anyone, including tanks, but is in real danger of just killing a non-tank. And if he happens to stay on the non-tank and hit them once or twice, they're almost certainly dead. So as the other 2 tank classes, the Juggernaut or Assassin, you use your AoE taunt to taunt off the other tank in order to have your single target up for the 30-meter range taunt back to you if the boss jumps away. If you don't do that, then you're left having to force speed or just walk out to the boss to get in ranged AoE taunt, and someone will almost certainly die if you have to do that. A couple of utilities that are really helpful in this phase for tanks are the Juggernaut can use Payback, which is a CC break that when you use your CC break, it heals you for 10% of your health. There's a flashbang that goes out in this fight, and it's not likely going to save your life, but it will reduce pressure on the healers if you can just get healed for 5,000 or 6,000 health during that phase, and it's just less that the healers have to handle on you. You can also take Consuming Rage or Intercessor. Consuming Rage means Enraged Defense clears all the debuffs you get. You'll notice there's an Immolate debuff that goes out, and a debuff that looks like Corrosive Grenade that goes out in this phase, and both of those are cleansable. On a Juggernaut, you can cleanse both of these off yourself once every 2 minutes, if you take that talent. Intercessor means Intercede provides an extra 10% bonus damage taken reduction on whoever you intercede to. And this is really useful if someone is weak without defensive cooldowns up, and they get Mouse Droids. Mouse Droids do a lot of damage to a DPS or healer, so if you can get that Intercede on them, it might save their life. It's important if this happens, like if you take this talent, that you get away from them as soon as possible after you intercede to them, such as by leaping back to the boss immediately, because the damage from the AoE, or the damage from the Mouse Droids is AoE, and it will kill you if you're near them, and you happen not to be at full health. As an assassin, the most useful talent in this phase is Shroud of Madness, so you get Force Shroud after you use Force Cloak. Force Shroud will mitigate all damage from the Corrosive Dart, and really reduce damage from Cull, as well as cleansing those debuffs off you. So this kill got sort of messy at the end because the DPS disconnected, but essentially that's how you do the fight. It's a very challenging fight, so if it takes some time, don't get frustrated. Good luck, and I hope you kill it.